And we are live. Welcome everybody to Lubbock Compact Live for Wednesday, July the 19th. And we've been on a little short hiatus. Of course, I am your host, Adam Hernandez, here with my co-host, Josh Shankles. And we have Lauren Locklear here with Cats Alley Cats. And so we'll be talking to her in just a second. And so the deal about today's show is we're talking to, of course, Cats Alley Cats, who does the trap, neuter, and release program here in Lubbock for cats. They also adopt out cats and all kinds of cool things. And so we'll let her explain it best. And we're glad everybody's here. Share this show far and wide if you're concerned about any sort of cat issues here in Lubbock. I know a lot of people have issues with strays, or sometimes people want to adopt or they want to help in some way. And so lots of good information on today's show. Josh and Lauren, take it away.
Lauren, thank you so much for joining us today. We know how busy you are, how much work you got to do. And so we're really glad you could come and tell our audience a little bit more about your organization. So why don't we just start right there? Like, Tell us about Cats. First, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about yourself. Let's all get to know each other, and then also tell us about Cats Alley Cats. Give our audience kind of a baseline of what's going on here.
Perfect. Well, I just want to start by saying thank you so much for having us. It's always a good opportunity for us to be able to spread the word about TNR and tell a little bit about our organization. I'm Lauren Locklear. I am our trapping coordinator. I onboard our volunteers. I wear many hats, as all of our small volunteer team does. And I volunteer with Cats Alley Cats, as you guys said. We do trap, neuter, and return here in Lubbock and the surrounding areas at times. Trap, neuter, return is the idea that there are, community cats, strays, and we take them to be sterilized. We often call this also TNVR because we do vaccinate all of the cats that come through our program. So TNVR, trap, neuter, vaccinate, and return. Cats Alley Cats is a complete 501c3 nonprofit, which means we're not affiliated with any federal, state, or local government. That has implications for our funding, of course. We are completely sponsored by donations and completely volunteer run. So we don't have any recurring or annual funding from any local government or state government or federal government. So we're completely donation based and completely volunteer run. We have no facility, so it's really just basically 10 folks in Lubbock running TNR out of their garage. And so we appreciate, of course, any support from the community that we can get. And we understand the size of the problem in Lubbock.
Gosh, we peek behind the curtain. We always have like 15 or so minutes with the guest right before the show where we're like prepping and getting to know each other. And hear you talk like this, it's just like, yeah, we know exactly where you guys are. So we're doing our work out of homes and whatnot for a long time. Bless your heart. Yeah, so I mean, this is something that our organization has tracked and followed for a long time, has been bringing up for a long time. Adam, as a candidate for mayor, this was like not exclusively cats, but stray animals of all kind, and kind of what the profile of this is within the city has been on our radar and on our map for a long time. And so we track this issue closely and try to do advocacy on it. So, maybe give us a picture of how the issue of stray animals is kind of managed in the context of our city and our county from your perspective.
That's a great question. In Lubbock, I'll speak specifically to cats because that's, my expertise. Right. For the most part, cats are considered essentially nuisance animals in some way, similar to the way that we think of squirrels. And so I don't want to misspeak here, but my understanding, because I'm not a government, affiliated employee, is that typically there isn't a full responsibility for the city to sort of have ownership of any cats that are stray or feral community cats or just generally cats that do not have an owner. And so the size of the problem of community cats is large and ever growing, because there's really no one specific group or organization that necessarily feels that ownership. Of course, Cats Alley Cats is trying to help the problem as best as we can, trying to trap, neuter, and return the community cats of Lubbock. But like I said, we're really, I think, one of the only groups in town doing TNR. And so it's a small chip at the ice block, so to speak, of what our organization is able to do with our current resources and current amount of volunteers.
Yeah, no, I mean, I think that's pretty accurate. Adam would know maybe have a lot more perspective, since he's had like communication with the animal shelter and whatnot. Adam, do you want to add to that perspective?
Well, I mean, the only thing that the only thing that I will add, I was surprised to actually learn when I went to talk to Stephen Green, who's the director of our animal services here, and was able to spend about an hour and a half down there and tour the facility and learn about all the ins and outs of what they do and don't do there. I was actually surprised to learn that they don't do trap, neuter, and release. I think that this is really a missed opportunity for the city. I know that you mentioned that cities don't necessarily have the obligation to do this, I guess maybe in the way that they might with dogs or something like that. But I'm often frustrated by this, and we've often voiced that frustration to city staff and city council, that sure, there's a bare minimum, and there's there's things that we're obligated to do, and then there's things that we're not obligated to do. But there's also things that are just a good idea to do, even if we're not obligated to do them. And I think that this is one of those things. And like you said, the problem is so large, and that really it needs city resources to at least be helping with the issue. I do think that we need a larger and more centrally located animal control facility. The one that we have is very, very small and not able to accommodate our needs at the present. And so it's not going to really handle our needs as our city continues to grow, depending on who you talk to, 2 to 5% year over year. That's like a huge growth, including during the pandemic. And so none of this has slowed down. And so I just, that's all I would really add, is that I do think that the city should really take the steps to put some resources behind this.
We would, of course, appreciate any additional support from any organization, including the city, that will help with TNR services. We do get support from LAS in various forms. Stephen Green allows us at times to, if we, for instance, find a friendly cat or find a cat that has a microchip that is chipped to LAS, they provide support for us in those ways. But of course, we will never complain if anyone else wants to get in on the TNR game, so to speak.
Yeah, no, I'm glad you chipped that in there, because it was gonna, this may be obvious, but one of the whole purposes of our show is just kind of like getting a baseline understanding around some issues. So, there are a whole number of animals that come into play when there's populations of humans involved. And that's, the domesticated animals that come along with us, many of which are good at escaping and good at surviving where there's human activity around, and dumpsters and food. And so this is, cockroaches and rats and mosquitoes. But yes, of course, also this is dogs and cats particularly, and they have a high reproductive rate. And so anywhere where you get this concentration and mixture, then you're going to naturally have this sort of thing start to build up as like a head of steam. It's what humans have been doing and animals have been doing for thousands of years of human civilization. Lubbock is no exception to that. However, it speaks to the need of having a proactive approach to it, instead of just letting the thing spin out of control. And then you get an ever growing problem of not only the nuisance factors, but it very well turns into like a safety factor. A feral cat can be a dangerous animal to interact with. And also, they can move disease vectors around a community. And so, you know, it just is kind of what it is, and why it speaks to the need of having not just you know, band-aid solutions, which we're like grateful for organizations to step into that gap, and you probably do need a comprehensive approach like that in a city our size. But to us, it really speaks to how we're lacking a kind of proactive approach to this sort of problem, which is an absolute necessity in a dynamic city. Like
For sure. And I'll speak to a couple of those points. Like Adam, you brought up this 2 to 5% year-over-year growth. Cats especially, I mean, this is a huge issue because cats that are females can get pregnant as young as 4 months old. And a single pair of unaltered cats can produce up to, and I am not making this number up, 420,000 cats in as little as 7 years, because the pyramid is exponential growth, right? 2 cats have kittens, and those kittens have kittens, and so on and so forth. So we can go from 2 to almost 500,000 cats in as little as 7 years.
Wow.
And so TNR is this proactive solution to help us prevent that, you know, 420,000 cat population from just 2. And also, Josh, to your point about cats sometimes being dangerous animals, for the most part, we don't encounter cats that are, you know, aggressive or angry or anything like that. But certainly illness in large colony definitely comes about. And so TNR, because we are vetting those cats, we're giving them, you know, rabies and those combination vaccines. We are able to treat any eye infections or respiratory infections that they have. It's also a solution to make that colony healthier. They're no longer going to, you know, have any more animals. They won't be, hopefully, you know, coming into contact with people's pets and those pets bringing those illnesses home. So TNR is a solution that is proactive to prevent this 2 to 5% year-over-year growth. It also just leaves the whole city and county of Lubbock healthier in terms of the animals themselves.
Yeah, that's
right, because
really, yeah, no, I was just gonna say, go ahead, Josh, before I go. Go ahead.
Well, the only thing that I was going to add to that is, of course, because this also has an effect on wildlife. And so you don't want these disease vectors to be moving to wildlife, and you don't want feral animals to have a negative impact on wildlife. Adam?
Absolutely.
Yeah, I just really had a question. And before I do my question, I just want to remind everybody, we do have a lot of viewers. Hey, everybody. We got some comments already. I'm really interested to hear from Lauren. And before I ask my question, don't forget, everybody, you can put your questions down in the comments. We'll see them. Lauren is here to answer them. Perfect time to do it while we're live on the show. So if you do have any questions while we're talking about anything or anything comes up, let us know. So my question, Lauren, is obviously trap, neuter, and release is a policy, right? What the idea here is, you neuter a cat, put it back out there, it can't have all those exponential babies, right? And so there's over time, there's an effect there. But what from your perspective, or from the perspective of your organization or folks that you work with out in the field, what are some policies that the city could enact that would help with this, or any ideas that you may have policy wise that would help in this mission, and or I guess strays in general, but more so with cats, since that's your wheelhouse?
This is a really great question and an important discussion for us to have. Our organization believes that the community cat problem is a community problem, and it's one that no one, you know, individual or group can solve. It's a community effort. I think one of the main things that as an organization we speak about a lot is the option of low cost spay and neuter. It's really expensive to get your own pets spayed and neutered in Lubbock. Vet services are often, you know, out of reach for some people, and it can be a barrier. There are barriers to access to vetting. And so low cost spay and neuter is something that is really important to help reduce this community cat problem, because it's not just, you know, when we say community cat can mean a feral cat. Feral is just a temperament, but community cats are also strays, the cats that, you know, are fully outdoors, but they're kind of someone's pet. Even people let their pets in and out who are unaltered. Those pets are creating more community cats. And so it's important for us to have low cost spay and neuter in town, because then we're reducing even more those cats going out and accidentally getting pregnant. Or, the Pets Clinic is doing great work, and we really appreciate that option for low cost spay and neuter, but the wait list is 6, maybe 8 months long there. So by the time we get a cat in for spay or neuter, they've had a couple of litters perhaps at that point. So we do offer in Cats Alley Cats low cost spay neuter vouchers that can be purchased directly from us. They are approximately, depending on the situation, $90. They include a spay neuter, vaccinations, microchip, and an ear tip for those cats. We have a floating number of vet spots during the week at various veterinary partners. And we think this is a really important way to get the community involved, is by having them purchase those vouchers, and they can bring cats in to the clinic that are, those community cats to get spayed and neutered. So I think at a policy level, more broadly speaking than our small, tiny voucher program, having more options for low cost spay neuter would really help this larger community problem that we have.
Awesome. And do you see other cities? Are there any municipalities that you've seen that actually do step up and kind of help with these things?
I can speak to my own personal experience there. I actually lived in Orlando, Florida for 5 years. And in Orlando, there were 6 to 8 basically spay neuter for community cat clinics. And you could drop in any Wednesday or Saturday morning at 7 a.m. with any cat that you wanted to be spayed or neutered. And the spay or neuter surgery was $25. As many people, they would take the first, I think 50 or 100 cats that showed up. And I don't think they ever really had to turn anyone away. And that was every single Wednesday and Saturday at 6 to 8 different clinics, depending on which week it was and things like that. And so that is, just one example of the municipality being really involved, and the community also helping, right? Because the city of Orlando was not going out and doing TNR, but they were providing the resources and the clinics to do those low cost spay and neuters. So the community would step up, bring in those cats for TNR, and then release them. And there was also options for low cost spay and neuter for your own pets as well.
Yeah, our city does huge numbers of public-private partnerships. This seems like the perfect opportunity to take a very modest public investment and use our, adequate veterinary services across the city, and create a kind of bridge there. And then pairing that up with, I'm glad you shouted out Pets. Huge shout out to them. So glad that they came to the community. All my cats got not neutered at Pets and vaccinated. So we're big fans here. But right, it's one organization, and it can't meet the demand by itself. So, but seeing that policy carry over into our public facilities and a more proactive approach in public facility, this comes up less in the cat situation as it does in feral and stray dogs, but a more proactive enforcement mechanism to kind of keep containment where as best as possible. And also, there's another resource gap that we've witnessed is people needing help, like repairing fences. They're elderly, they've got situations that make that kind of prohibitive. And so we've seen Lubbock Animal Shelter, where possible, kind of step into that. But, we were always kind of hoping and recommending that we'd see builders kind of step into that and be helpful in providing materials, because longtime viewers of the show will know the public does a lot of subsidizing builders in our community. So it would be nice to see them kind of stepping into some necessary gaps. And I'm enjoying this policy discussion. Lauren, what other statistical facts do you think would be illuminating to the public to hear?
Yeah,
some highlights?
You timed it perfectly, Josh. We had a question from Kim, and she was saying, how many cats does Cats Alley Cats help on average in a year? This was something I was going to ask as well. Great question. Kind of what are the numbers of this issue here in Lubbock?
So we were officially established in 2018, And we've tried to, do some historical analysis and figure out, but we've kept really good numbers since 2020. In 2020, we spayed and neutered 1,394 cats. In 2022, we spayed and neutered 1,447 cats. So we are, growing a little bit each year in terms of our spay and neuters. Our total spay and neuter from 2020 to now, which is when we really started keeping good records, is 5,263 spay and neuters, TNRs. And so far this year, we've done 743. So we're on track to, again, get to that 1,500-ish mark. So we are doing a lot of TNR, a lot of spay and neuter, but our services don't stop at spay and neuter. We also work with a lot of medical cases. So, feral community cats, sometimes you can't necessarily, if they're injured, can't just go pick it up and take it to the vet. So we're often dispatched to come out and help trap an injured cat. And so far just this year, we've dealt with 276 medical cases. And so those medical cases are, a cat has a plastic bag wrapped around their neck really tightly. They got in a fight and they have a really bad abscess, all the way to a cat broke their leg and, needs a amputation, or they have a really serious upper respiratory infection and that has led to one of their eyes rupturing and they need an enucleation. We do all of those types of services, but of course, each of those medical cases do cost a lot of money, but more than the typical spay and neuter TNR process would cost. And so we're probably on track to do something like 400 or more medical cases this year. We did 404 last year. So those medical cases also take up a lot of our resources, but they're really important for the community, right? Because like you said, we don't want disease to spread throughout the community. We don't want, injured cats to be feeling and suffering all over. And so we get calls from people and they're like, there's a cat in my yard, or, I saw this injured cat, and we'll come out and help those cases.
Awesome. Well, so you guys also adopt out cats sometimes, right? And there's actually 2 cats. Well, there's one that's here right now with me. Nix was adopted from Cats Alley Cats, and Kim's son and daughter-in-law's cat Louie was adopted from Cats Alley Cats. Josh, do you have any Cats Alley Cats? You got like 20 cats.
No, we picked the stray followed us from the park. So we ended up with this. I can't say that I've had the pleasure.
Josh has the OG alley cat.
Yeah.
I got it OG style. No,
Yeah.
But I mean, that is so astonishing to me. Let me just thank you for that amount of work. You guys are working so hard. You deserve a key to the city. My goodness, this is unreal. And you're so right. I mean, I remember, again, going back to your campaign, Adam, like we wrote copy about this right before you took the meeting about this, because it is a issue of such complexity, because it both ends up being a nuisance and this thing that people feel, upset about, and also a thing that people have a lot of very justified, sympathetic, emotional responses to, because of course, these animals wouldn't be with us at all if we didn't care about them on just a very human level. And you see something that's innocent out there suffering, it's heartbreaking. And so, yeah, it just really points me. I mean, it just really points me at that. We really owe you a huge thank you, because it's such important work and it's so difficult, from logistical and from an emotional perspective, all of that, man, that's just really unreal.
Yeah,
we appreciate the thank you, but we don't feel like we need it. The cats are our thank you, and we love what we do. And of course, we just hope that the community can help continue to support us and help in this community solution.
Yeah, and that's, I mean, I'm blown away by the numbers too. I'm just trying to process that right now. But you just perfect segue into how can people help with this. Also, if you would like to talk a little bit more about adopting out cats. I'm not exactly sure what your process is there, but if you would like to talk about that, we can. But also, how can people help? How can people get involved? How can they donate? All of those things.
Yeah, I'll answer both of those questions, Adam. So in terms of adoptions, I want to reiterate that first and foremost, our mission is trap, neuter, and return. So the R is really the most important part in our mission, is the return part. I did crunch some numbers, and less than 5% of our animals that we encounter are not returned. So sometimes we have what we say non-returnables. These are cats that may have been injured or ill. They can't go back to where they were going because perhaps there's a dangerous situation, or maybe someone went ahead and grabbed them from their backyard and started making them social and that kind of thing. This is a very rare case. And so we're really not a rescue. We're really not an adoption and fostering agency, but at times we do have some special cases that do get adopted out. But the return part is super important because we are a TNR organization. We do not intake cats or kittens. We don't have a facility. Like I said, we're just 10 ladies running TNR out of our garage. So it's just important for me to underscore, we're really not a rescue, but every now and then we get a few cats that can be, or are maybe adopted, and we'll partner with different rescues in town to get those guys adopted out. In terms of how the community can help us, there's 3 really important ways. First and foremost, we are a nonprofit. We function solely on donations. And so a monetary donation allows us to continue to spay and neuter, continue to do TNR in Lubbock, and provide those life-saving medical services that we talked about earlier for those injured and ill cats that we come across. So if you do want to donate, we have a link tree situation, like a link in bio. So our link in bio can be found at catsalleycats.org/link-in-bio. And that links you to our Venmo, PayPal, Cash App, our Facebook. You can buy some Cats Alley Cats merch if you want. We have lots of cool stuff that helps us, do what we do in the community. And of course, we always appreciate any donations, even $1. And I genuinely mean that, is so helpful for us. We also try to, apply for grants and things like that. But the amount of time we spend on doing grant paperwork could also be spent going out and trapping cats in the community. So your money is super valuable to us because we don't have to, go out and write a full proposal that takes us a week to do, or 2 weeks or a month. The other way that people can help if they can't donate, and we completely understand that, is to volunteer. Of course, we are a completely volunteer-run organization. We do TNR, but we also have some administrative roles that are helpful for people to fill if they don't feel like TNR is for them. We get hundreds of requests in our Facebook and Gmail per week to help with TNR in town. And so it takes a lot of manpower just to even respond to our Facebook messages and to our email. And so even if you can't go out and trap, it's really helpful for us to have that administrative staff. But also, if you do want to come help us do TNR and trap, we would really appreciate it. No experience necessary. We can 100% train you, teach you everything you need to know. It's a super, super fun thing to do. And it also makes you feel really accomplished. The last thing that you can do to help us is to spread the word. And so if you don't have the time to volunteer, which I totally understand, funds are tight, you can't donate, you can help get the word out about us. So you can educate your neighbors about TNR, you can share our social media posts, you can host your own fundraiser on Facebook. That donate button really helps us. And you can just follow us on socials. We're on Facebook, Instagram, and I'm doing my best to make our TikTok cool. So if you can follow our socials, we would really appreciate that too.
Yeah, well, this has been the show of perfect segues. So you talked a little bit about people volunteering to trap. So Kim has another question. She says, how does the cat trapping process work? Like if someone had a colony or a single cat on their block, they call Cats Alley Cats, and then what happens next?
So that's a really great question. If you call Cats Alley Cats right now, we have about an 8 month to 1 year wait list. That's the extent of the problem in Lubbock. And so the most efficient thing right now is to buy one of those vouchers. But if let's say that you're the lucky person and you're next in line on our wait list, which don't worry, there are people out there that, are experiencing that this week. We will coordinate with you to figure out the best time to come set those traps. You will withhold food if you're the colony caretaker, as we say, from those cats that are nice and hungry and want to go in our traps. A volunteer will come out and set those traps for you. We will make a plan with the caretaker to make sure that the traps are monitored overnight and they're in a safe area. We'll plan to make sure we have enough traps out there based on the number of traps needed for that colony size that you have. We'll come back first thing in the morning and see who's there. Hopefully we caught, all 8 we were going for, or however many. Those guys will go to the vet. They will be spayed, neutered, microchipped, vaccinated, and ear tipped. And then we'll bring them back in the evening, give them a nice, yummy slop meal, as we call it. So they get some wet food and mix a bunch of water in there so they're nice and hydrated. If they're all fully awake and alert, it is safe for us to release them that evening, but also at times, especially given, the heat or weather, things like that, we can also have them stay overnight in the traps, like in a garage, for instance, or a safe covered area, and then have those cats released in the morning. So it's a fairly efficient process, assuming that everyone is nice and hungry when we get to that colony. But it's a super effective way to reduce and stabilize those cat populations.
That's
Wow.
amazing.
Yeah.
And so Hunter Hatfield has put the Cats Alley Cats Trapper application into the comments.
Thank you, Hunter.
And so next question that just came up in my head as you were talking, how many, I guess on average, or is there even an average of like how many cats are typically like in a colony if that's a situation?
This varies greatly. There can be as few as, one cat can be a community cat colony, perhaps, I guess you could say. We have also encountered 120, 140, 150 cat colonies. We actually did a project last May where we ended up doing, I think, 125 or just over 125 cats on one single property in Lubbock. So, I mean, if you, and I will say that person also, they started out with just one cat. A while ago, but there just was one cat at one point. So the size of colonies really, really varies. But it's important to get those cats spayed and neutered early and as soon as you can, so you don't end up, you start with one and then you have 125. And so it's super, super important for TNR to start early. Like I said, because of our wait list, that low cost spay and neuter voucher program is really valuable for the community. And so if we will lend traps to those individuals if they're willing to set the traps themselves. They can transport to any one of our veterinary partners for those vouchers. And that's a really efficient way. And it really helps us too, because like I said, we're just 10 ladies running TNR out of our garage and we're trying our best, and all of us have full-time jobs, right? We're all just volunteers. And so this is also our nights and weekends and things like that. So we don't have a single paid staff member. We don't have anyone who's an admin. We're just like answering our Facebook messages, between our lunch breaks, and we're trapping at night and things like that. So those vouchers are really valuable for the community and for us because it helps us.
Unbelievable.
Yeah. Real quick, Josh, before you go, Josh, I gotta put a rant in here because this is, we often get asked, how can I get involved? I have some time, or I've been inspired, I've been motivated by somebody, I want to get involved in the community. And we often talk about how many different ways there are, and it's not an understatement, how many different ways there are that somebody can get involved in the community. And it's really whatever your personality is, or what you like to do, or what you're passionate about. I guarantee you there's something that you can get involved in. And this is one of those things. So if you're an animal person, especially a cat person, you can get involved in this work. And as you've heard several times, Lauren and her team of 9 other ladies are, doing the struggle that we all go through with these volunteer organizations, is there's never enough hands. And so I just want to put a call to action out there to anybody that would like to be involved in this work, whether that's on the trap side and that side of it, or if that's not for you, which I totally understand. It's kind of hard for me to kind of, handle cats and things like that. They also need help, as many organizations do, with, like she said, answering the influx of messages that they're getting, the emails, because also you could be helping them build out their team, because some of those people that are contacting them are people that are wanting to volunteer and they just haven't had time to read the email. And so I just really wanted to kind of stop there and put that to the forefront. This is another opportunity for folks to get involved in the community and do something good for the community. There's just so many different things that you can do that can improve our communities, and this is another one of those opportunities. So just really wanted to stick that in there. But go ahead, Josh.
Yeah, I appreciate that,
Now,
Adam. And just one thing to say, I moved here 2 years ago and I was thinking like, I like cats and I want to get involved. What should I do? I don't really know that many people. And now I have like 10 new besties too. So it's a cool way to spend your time and meet new people. And then you can be my new bestie if you join our organization.
yeah, no, the only thing that I wanted to emphasize are a couple of things you said, which was, I'm so glad you gave people multiple ways to tap in, but with an organization like this, I can imagine people are very eager to help with like donating stuff, and that's a very nice sentiment, but the cash part, having the cash to do exactly what your organization needs. It's such an important thing to emphasize. And also the thing that you said about the release part of your mission, that is what you do. And when we have organizations and resource and people willing to step up to the plate to serve our community, let's not overtax them out by like muddying up their mission. But let them attend to their thing, and if there's other gaps, then that's places for other people to step into, and the public to step into. So I'm so glad you said that. Are there any other questions, Adam,
There
or
is.
comments that need to be said? Okay.
Yeah, and again, another perfect segue. So Kim with another great question here. Do you have any tips for colony caretakers? Because I know there's a lot of these folks around the city. I've come across many of them. I'm sure there's many more out there. So do you have any tips for colony caretakers on how to be a better colony caretaker besides obviously getting them spayed and neutered? What are some things they can do to kind of, I guess, help the overall community in their efforts?
Absolutely. So in terms of being a colony caretaker, even if you didn't choose to be a colony caretaker, sometimes you are. Sometimes there are cats that live, in your backyard or under your shed. Of course, spay and neuter is the first thing that we would love to do, is get those cats TNR'd. Providing food and water for the cats is super important. If they're already there, they're going to be there. And if they're being fed, the cats are going to be much more behaved, I guess is the word. They're not going to be hanging out in the dumpster. They're going to know where their food is, and they're not going to have to fight over those resources either. Spaying and neutering also takes away all of those cat hormones. So then the cats are not, also engaging in different types of, mating behaviors and fighting and yowling and things like that. Also providing a shelter. There are these like basically Tupperware, you know what I'm talking about? They're like the big 60-gallon where you put them in when you're moving and stuff. You can make those into cat houses, and I can definitely drop the link under the Facebook live video here. But basically, you can buy some insulation and some straw. Straw is for strays, hay is for horses. So definitely straw, not hay, please. You can fill those with straw and get some insulation and make little cat houses for the winter when it's really, really cold. And it also actually does still protect them from the heat and the sun in the summer as well. When the cats have been spayed and neutered, that population is stable, they have stable food and water and shelter, then most of the time those colonies will live out their lives and not bring in new cats. We call this the vacuum effect. If for some reason the colony leaves, or you try to get it adopted out or something, it creates a vacuum, right? Where new cats can come in. And so it's really important for you to just like care for and nurture your little colony. And sometimes some of the complaints or thoughts that some people share is, well, they're using the restroom in places I don't want them to. Even a really small, like 4x4 brick with sand inside acts as a natural litter box for cats. They're really smart. They know that they like to use the restroom in particular places. And so if you build them a really particular place somewhere away from the, where you don't want them to do that, they can also use that. And it's sort of self-cleaning, since you can just buy like play sand and stuff like that. And so just broadly speaking, if you're spaying and neutering and you're feeding and watering and giving them a little bit of shelter, and even possibly providing them a place to go to the bathroom, you're doing amazing, and we really appreciate you. If for any reason any of your cats do look sickly or look pregnant, or you think they have an injury, you can also help by getting them to the vet, calling us to help come out and trap them and get them to the vet. So that was, yeah, I think that's how.
Awesome. That's a master class in being a colony caretaker. I did want to give a shout out to Anne. She signed up to help and volunteer. She said she can help with some administrative things. So
Thank you,
definitely
Anne.
want to shout out Anne. Thank you for stepping up and being a super community member and helping out with the mission. So Josh, do you have anything else?
No, I just have, again, we say this to so many of our guests, but I really feel at this time, we owe you guys such a debt of gratitude. Thank you so much for what you do. We're going to keep our eye on your work, and we'll be doing our part to make sure that your burden can be lessened if at all possible.
Well, thank you guys so much for having us on the show, for letting us amplify our message and our mission, and for letting us, drop our links and, do a little fundraising and volunteer raising and all of that. So we really appreciate you too.
Awesome. And do y'all have a website?
Our website is in process, under construction as we
Okay.
speak. But our link in bio does link to that website at some point when we launch. It's catsalleycats.org, and our PayPal and everything is catsalleycats.org/link-in-bio. But if you are looking for us, the most reliable place as of right now is our Facebook. And so if you want to contact us, you can do so through our Facebook Messenger. That's the fastest place for us to dispatch any help, get you onboarded as a volunteer, tell you how to donate, all of those things. So you can find us on
Awesome.
our Facebook right now.
Very cool.
Awesome.
Thank you,
Well,
Lauren.
thanks. Yeah, thanks for coming on. Josh, are we ending the show, or did you have some other things you needed to talk
No,
about? What are we
I
doing?
have a little bit more.
Okay.
I got an announcement, but we can power through it really fast. I know we've got just us next week.
All right. All right.
Thank you,
Well,
guys.
Lauren,
I'll
thanks
log
for
out here.
coming, and we'll see you next time. I'm sure we'll have you on again.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Yeah.
All right, cool.
Normally we do the community resource spotlight, and that would be Adam's job. But this week we just wanted to kind of emphasize and acknowledge that, longtime viewers of the show are going to remember we've been going through this neighborhood planning process that has been completed. It will be presented to City Council if it hasn't already. Forgive me, I haven't checked in on that yet. And then we'll be moving through implementation. But the last step of this from the neighborhood planners was going to be to throw a big party to celebrate, for the community to be able to get together. And so we wanted to make sure and re-announce that to folks that the Dunbar Manhattan Heights neighborhood party is going to be Friday, July 21st, 6 to 8 p.m. at the May Simmons Community Center. I did see that Tom Braxton will be out there. Looks like it'll be a fun time. And then the Jackson Mahon neighborhood party is tomorrow, Thursday, July 20th, 6 to 8 p.m. in Collins Park. I see they're going to have a mariachi group. Also looks like it'll be a good time. And so, especially if you live in those communities, especially if you contributed to this planning process at all, it would be great to see you guys out there. I know we're going to try and attend one or the other of these. And so we wanted to make sure to say, y'all come out, let's see these parties. Let's give our planners one last thank you. They did such a good job. And like I said before, we have our internal show next week. So we'll be reviewing city council meetings and some other things, bringing people back up to speed after our hiatus. But there was one bigger news piece that I thought was worthy to bring forward and discuss now, especially because in light of some of our discussion around this stray animals problem, I think it continues to throw some light on some, I think, very fair critiques that we've had of city leadership. So I just wanted to briefly talk about the news story last week about the abandoned 911 calls. So folks may have watched this, they may have read about it in the news, but basically what happened was a 911 call center operator kind of came forward to the Lubbock Professional Police Association with concerns about how many drop calls were in that center and what the staffing issues were like. And in all fairness, her critiques are very fair. I mean, she's like coming from the inside of this. She's an employee that's dealing with this sort of issue. And she saw some staffing reduction, and that staffing reduction in connection with some of these dropped or missed calls was kind of enough for her to feel like she should come forward. And in the news piece, it's our understanding, gonna, look into this a little bit more, that after having come forward and said that she thought this was a problem, then she became subject to disciplinary action within the department that was kind of related to an insubordinate attitude and a lack of, being a good team member. We don't know about the veracity of that entirely. That might be overstated, but if that's the case, that would, of course, be a little bit concerning depending on the contours of that, because people should have total freedom to come forward about concerns. That's how we make things run better. For a little bit of context here, what we're talking about is in Lubbock, 30,000, a little bit more than 30,000 what's termed abandoned calls in the last calendar year. This term, it has a really specific meaning. It means when somebody calls 911 and for whatever reason does not connect with an operator. Now, that might mean that the call was ringing for a long time and then the phone disconnected. That might mean that the person accidentally called 911 and hung up on them. That has a lot of reasons behind it, and the data behind how that breaks out hasn't yet been reported and may not be something that's tracked in a formal way. But these 30,000 abandoned calls, of them, 26,000, a little bit more than 26,000 were returned by a 911 operator. Now, we don't know how fast that was, how many of them, again, were like, did you mean to call 911? No, I didn't. Goodbye. Or how many of them were, yes, I was. Why didn't you answer the phone? So, I think this is a concerning issue. And for one more piece of context that I wrote down here is that, our city likes to benchmark against other peer cities across the state of Texas. And so one of the benchmarks that was given for this is Irving, Texas. Irving comes up a lot in different benchmarking conversations around the city. And in Irving, they had 13,000, a little bit more than 13,000 abandoned calls in last calendar year, but they did almost have 13,000 call backs. So they were able to return a higher percentage of those missed calls. Now, Police Chief Mitchell gave some statements about what staffing has looked like here, how it's been challenging to keep the call center fully staffed, how much of the budget kind of gets eaten up by overtime because of some staffing concerns. And that's certainly not unique to this call center. That's across almost every industry and every private sector thing. The city has long struggled with fully staffing a lot of different areas. And this is something that we've seen some improvement on with improving pay scale and recruitment efforts, but there's still some work to go. And I think that's about it for the contours of this. But the reason why I wanted to bring this up, especially on this show, is because unfortunately for me, for us, for our organization, this points back to a critique that we've long had, which is that leadership in our city are part-timers. And that's not entirely their fault. Some of that is how our city charter is constructed, although this is something that they could fix, and we've had opportunities to fix in the past that we haven't attended to. And we've long stated our reasons for why our city should have a more professionalized and full-time leadership in it, because what we're seeing is our city's administration starting to groan under the weight of what it takes to actually administer our city. So, in our earlier segment, this is how long leadership of the city has been asleep at the wheel of this strays problem, how long we've needed a proactive animal policy, how long advocacy on this issue has fallen on deaf ears, how many successive councils this has been the case with. But also increasingly starts to point to a profound lack of curiosity and vision for what is going on in our city. And, we see our, city council members out on the street. So I'm not sure what the disconnect is there, that these things appear to not be being seen or being attended to. It's just remaining, I think, very fair. We're trying to be entirely fair about this critique of city leadership, in that whether it's the police department, whether it's our feral cats, whether it's a host of other community needs, we're not seeing the type of leadership that I think we should and we deserve and could have. But also we're not seeing it often ends up as sort of this gaslighted affair where people are like, I don't know what you're talking about. We don't understand what your problem is. So, I wanted to bring to light that 911 call, and I wanted to contextualize it. Adam, what kind of thoughts do you have on this?
Well, I'll wrap it up as quickly as possible because we're already at 8 o'clock. But my thoughts have been pretty clear on this type of thing. In certain instances in the city, we need to just spend the resources to get the thing done. And the frustration has been that a lot of times there's a reluctance from whoever, council or whoever, to actually spend the money necessary to do the things necessary that we need. Again, something that I pointed out a lot of times, for a city that's growing as fast as we're growing. Lubbock is, there's a lot of people that say we're a small town. There's a lot of people that say that they would like us to stay a small town. Neither one of those things are going to happen. We're not a small town anymore. And the reason why some folks out there may feel like we're still a small town is particularly because of how fast we've grown. We've grown in such a short amount of time, to such an extent that the actual parts of the city have shifted. At one point, East Lubbock only meant everything east of I-27, because that was the east of the city. And the area that was similar to what you would see in the southwest of the city today was more closer to like 50th and University than it was to, 50th and Milwaukee, right? And so we've grown in such a short amount of time that you might have missed it. And you may never even really get out of your bubble to see how large the city is. But I've had a lot of time and been able to spend a lot of time driving all over the city to understand really how vast the growth has been. We are growing at a rate of 2 to 5%, depending on who you speak to, year over year. That's a huge growth for a city. That being the case, you can't spend money like we're growing at a regular rate that most cities grow at. We're not. The reason is, at least in my mind, is that we are the largest metro out in this area. We're an island out here, and we are the capital of the plains. It's not just something that we say, that's what we are by default, because we are the largest metro out here. And so if you're going to move out here, you're probably going to move here. And so that being said, we need to start thinking of our spending in context of that. And we can't keep droning on about, first of all, it's not true, but droning on about how Lubbock is in such bad financial shape, or there's wasteful spending, or all these things going on. If you pay attention for half a second, if you go to many of the city council meetings throughout the year where the budget is brought up and it's shown in graphs, this is not a secret. Lubbock is not in bad financial shape. We're not. We have A1 credit. We're in great financial shape. We have lots of cash on hand. When people talk about the city, there is cash on hand there. And I know this for a fact because I just went through Lubbock 101. And Lubbock 101, a huge part of it, one of the whole classes, is about the city budgets and how the money works, and that we indeed do have money that we could put towards things if those things were priority enough. And sometimes they are. So whenever you see something happen, you're like, well, how does the city have money for that? They didn't have money for this. That's how. There's money there. As Josh alluded to, you have to have the leadership step up. When you're in a business, when you're in an organization, if you're a leader of any sort, all of the failures and the successes are on you, whether you like that or not, whether you agree to that or not, whether you signed up for that or not. If you put yourself in a position of leadership, all of the failures and all of the successes are on your shoulders. And so you have to have the vision and the insight and then the wherewithal to get up and do something about that as the leader. And the frustrating thing that we've seen time and time again with our city council, and I'll remind folks, the city council has 3 employees. The first employee is the city manager. Second employee is the city attorney. Third employee is the city secretary. The city manager controls all of these things, including the police station and where the spending goes and at what time that spending goes. So to clarify, the chief of police can't just say, I want to spend X amount of dollars and get this many call center people. He has to go to the city manager and say, look, we probably need this many call center people. And whether the city manager honors that or not is on the city manager. It's not on that department head, which in this case had happened to be the chief of police. And it's the same with the fire department. It's the same with public works. It's the same with every other department of the city. And so it's unclear to me, at least in this story, of where did the breakdown occur? We've heard about the staffing issues. The last thing I'll say is with the staffing issues, another thing that leadership needs to step up and do something about. They need to step up and think about it and do something about it. When businesses are recruiting employees for Lubbock, there is an unofficial thing called the Lubbock tax, meaning you need to pay somebody to have them come live out here in the middle of nowhere. When it comes to Texas, we are in the middle of nowhere. I hope everybody understands that in Lubbock. We are in the middle of nowhere. Therefore, because we're not near the triangle of Texas, which is the Dallas-Fort Worth, Austin, Houston area, if you're not in that large area there where there's a bunch of people concentrated, we're out in the middle of nowhere, and you need to pay somebody, especially if you want good people, you need to pay them to be out here. It just is what it is. There's so many different offerings in other places. It just is what it is. You have to have them. You have to have that to attract them. That's something that's unofficially called the Lubbock tax. We've known about this for a long time. We seem to not understand that as a municipality. And not only do we not understand that, we don't even pay our municipality staff in a lot of cases what the national average or even the state average is a lot of times. And you're going to have those people who are going to say, oh, people should work for $7 an hour still. It doesn't work that way. Over time, inflation by itself goes up. Regardless of whatever may be happening that may make it higher or lower at any given point in time, it's going to go up over time. You can't pay people the same thing and expect them to be able to cover their expenses or expect them to be attracted to your job offering. So one thing the city needs to do is they need to look over all of their departments and see where they are pay-wise. There also needs to be a look to the culture of those departments. If we're having a revolving door, I've been a GM of a restaurant, 2 different restaurants, as a matter of fact. I know a lot about this. If you have a very high turnover rate, there's something wrong with your culture. And again, it falls on the leader. It doesn't fall on the team. It doesn't fall on the staff members. It falls on the leader. What the leader allows as the culture is what happens. And the culture contributes to so many people who may have otherwise been excited to do that job, now not wanting to do that job and not even wanting to live in Lubbock anymore. And so we need to take a look at what is the culture that is happening in our departments and what does the pay look like that is happening in our departments. And the last piece of that is, do people feel empowered to come forward and have critiques or have constructive criticism or have ideas about how you may improve? Is that something that's a part of your culture? Because if it's not, folks nowadays, especially younger folks, are not going to want to stay in a job that's a dead end. where they feel like they're not making an impact, or they can't have any input, or they can't do anything to help the organization move forward as a whole. And so all of these things in conjunction need to be taken a look at, not only in LPD, but in all of the departments of the city. And again, as you said, Josh, it's going to absolutely take the leadership. It has to be the leadership that does it. And what we've heard time and time again, last thing I'll say from our leadership, is they act like they're not the last line of defense. They're like, oh yeah, just keep complaining about it. Just keep coming to us about it. You are the ones that have to do something about it. The buck should stop with you. So that's the last thing I'll say.
Dude, you're so right. I mean, you just perfectly encapsulated that, because I mean, that was the thing that I had forgot to say in my part of the rant. Was the thing, one of the things that's really bugged me is watching all these people who have power, who were put in place to fix problems, who are responsible, play blame game and point at their subordinates and be like, oh well, it was supposed to be him. No, that is so, it's telling is what it is. Anyway, I think you put it perfectly, and that's a good wrap to the show.
Well, thanks everybody for tuning in. One last time, got to give a shout out to Cats, Alley Cats, and make sure that you donate to them. Make sure that you try to volunteer with them, or at least just go to their Facebook page and share their post and help them in that way if you can. Such a great organization, something that's so needed. And until city policy changes and helps them, they're going to be grinding it out, and we love them so much for that. And so with that, I'll just remind you to join your neighborhood association, as I do every single week. That's where you can first start to get plugged in and start learning about what's happening in your city. And so make sure you join your neighborhood association, wherever that may be. And we'll be right back here next time, and see you later.
Bye, everybody.